Captain Lee Jun stood at the viewport of the UEF Dauntless, watching the stars. His ship hung in orbit above New Geneva, where the Galactic Council was about to arrive. Lee's face showed nothing, but his hands were tight behind his back. "They're coming, sir," said Commander Kim Sun, walking up beside him. 3 council ships just jumped into the system. Lee nodded. "Right on time. The aliens are always on time." The alien ships were beautiful. They glided through space like silver fish, smooth and clean. No weapons could be seen on their hulls. The council races always said they had moved past such barbaric displays. Kim handed Lee a tablet. "Latest intelligence, sir. You should see this before the meeting." Lee scanned the report and frowned. "Are you sure this is correct?" "Yes, sir. We intercepted their communications. They're not coming for a friendly chat." The report showed that the Council was losing planets to some unknown enemy at the edge of the galaxy. They hadn't told humans about this threat. Typical. "So they need our help, but they won't say it directly," Lee said. Kim nodded. "They never do. For 60 years, they've called us the violent children of the galaxy. Now they need those violent children to fight for them." Lee remembered when humans first met the council races. The aliens had seemed so advanced, so peaceful. They spoke of ethics and cooperation while looking down on humans for their primitive warlike tendencies. Humans had worked hard to prove they were civilized enough to join galactic society. "Tell the crew to be ready," Lee said. "Full dress uniforms. We need to look the part." "The part of the well-behaved humans?" Kim asked with a small smile. "Exactly." 2 hours later, Lee sat across from Ambassador Vexlar in the station's meeting room. Vexlar was tall and thin with blue-tinted skin that seemed to shimmer. His 4 eyes blinked in different patterns as he spoke. "Captain Lee, the Council extends its greetings," Vexlar said. "We have come to discuss matters of mutual benefit." Lee kept his face neutral. "We're honored by your presence, Ambassador. Earth is always ready to strengthen our ties with the Council." Vexlar's mouth twitched in what Lee had learned was a sign of discomfort. "Yes, well, humans have made progress in recent decades. Your efforts to contain your more aggressive impulses are noted." Kim, sitting beside Lee, tensed slightly. Vexlar continued. "We have reports of increased raider activity in the Outer Rim. Several worlds have lost contact." "Raiders?" Lee asked. "Our reports suggest something far worse than raiders, Ambassador." Vexlar's eyes all blinked at once. "I'm not sure what you mean." "I think you do," Lee said quietly. "Whatever is coming from beyond the rim, it's not just taking resources, it's taking whole worlds." Before Vexlar could respond, Lee's communicator beeped urgently. He checked it and stood up. "We'll have to continue this later, Ambassador. I just received a distress call from Nova Colony. It's under attack." Vexlar looked alarmed. "Surely your border patrols can handle a simple raider attack." Lee looked straight at Vexlar. "If it were raiders, yes. But you and I both know it's something else, don't we?" The alien's skin paled slightly. "The Dauntless will depart immediately," Lee announced. "Ambassador, you're welcome to join us if you wish to see firsthand what's really happening out there." As they left the room, Kim whispered to Lee, "Do you think they'll come?" Lee shook his head. "No. They'll watch from a safe distance. They always do." "And Nova Colony? Will we make it in time?" Lee's face grew dark. "We'll try. But I think the Council has known about these attacks for months. They've just been waiting to see if whatever it is would hit humans first." "Sir," Kim said carefully, "if you're right, then all this talk about civilization and peace was just their way of keeping us in check," Lee finished. "Let's go find out what we're really dealing with." The Dauntless broke orbit 20 minutes later, accelerating toward the colony. Behind them, the Council ships made no move to follow. The UEF Dauntless dropped out of hyperspace near Nova Colony. Captain Lee Jun stood from his command chair, his face growing pale. Where the colony should have been, there was now just darkness and floating debris. Full scan, he ordered. Find survivors. Commander Kim Sun worked quickly at her station. Sir, I'm detecting a small group of emergency pods on the far side of the moon. 37 life signs. 37. Lee's voice was quiet. Out of 20,000 colonists. The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. Bring them aboard, Lee said finally, and keep scanning for whatever did this. Hours later, Lee sat across from Park Ha, the colony's chief scientist. The man's hands shook as he held his cup of water. It wasn't ships, Park said. Not like anything we've seen before. They were living things. Massive. Like space whales, but with hundreds of tentacles. They didn't bomb us. They consumed everything. Lee showed Park a data tablet. Is this what you saw? Park's eyes widened. Yes, exactly that. How did you? The council had images, Lee said coldly. They've known about these creatures for some time. Kim entered the room with her own tablet. Sir, I've completed the analysis of the council communications we intercepted. They call this threat the Void Collective. It's a hive-mind entity that consumes resources, technology, and living beings. It absorbs knowledge from what it consumes. Park looked up sharply. That explains why they targeted our research center first. We were studying advanced AI systems. Lee's communicator beeped. Captain, this is Bridge. A council ship is approaching. Ambassador Vexlar is requesting to come aboard. Let him, Lee said. Ambassador Vexlar did not look comfortable sitting in the Dauntless's meeting room. 2 human security officers stood by the door, watching him. I see you found what remains of Nova Colony, Vexlar said. Why didn't you warn us? Lee asked directly. Vexlar's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. The council determined that information about the Void Collective would cause unnecessary panic. Unnecessary. Kim's voice was sharp. 20,000 people are dead. A regrettable loss, Vexlar said. But the council has been monitoring this threat for decades. We have statistical models that predict its movements. Lee leaned forward. And those models showed it would hit human colonies first, didn't they? Vexlar did not answer. I found something else in the data, sir, Kim said to Lee, ignoring the alien. This isn't the first time the council has used this strategy. There are records of 3 other species that the council allowed to be attacked first. All 3 are now extinct. Vexlar stood up. Those species lacked human adaptability. The council calculated that humans have a 47% chance of developing effective countermeasures, much higher than the others. So we're your shield, Lee said. You're sacrificing our worlds to give yourselves time. We prefer to think of it as selecting the most favorable outcome for galactic civilization as a whole, Vexlar replied. Lee exchanged glances with Kim. Get off my ship, Ambassador, Lee said quietly. After Vexlar left, Parquet entered with new data. Captain, I've analyzed the collective's attack pattern. Each time it consumes a world, it adapts its strategy based on what it learned. It's getting smarter with each attack. Lee nodded, and the council knows this. There's more, Park said. Based on its current course, the collective will reach Earth in approximately 6 months. Kim looked alarmed. Earth doesn't have the defenses to stop something like this. Not with our current technology. Lee's eyes narrowed. Our current technology. The technology we've shown the council. Sir, Kim looked confused. Contact Admiral Kang at Earth Command, Lee ordered. Security level Omega. Tell him it's time to open the sealed archives. The sealed archives? Park asked. What are those? Lee's face was grim. Everything we didn't want the council to know we could build. It seems civilized is a luxury we can no longer afford. The Dauntless turned and accelerated toward Earth, leaving the council ship behind. In the darkness of space, something vast and hungry changed its course to follow. The emergency meeting on Earth was tense. Captain Lee Jun and Commander Kim Sun sat at a large round table with Earth's top leaders. Admiral Kang Jin, head of Earth Fleet, stood at the front of the room. "The Galactic Council has betrayed us," Admiral Kang said. "They knew about the Void Collective for years. They directed it toward human space deliberately." On the big screen, images of the destroyed Nova colony played. Some people in the room looked away. "How many other colonies are at risk?" asked President Choi Min, Earth's diplomatic leader. "At least 12 in the direct path," Kim answered. "Population of 45 million humans." Choi Min shook her head in disbelief. "I spent 15 years working with the Council. I truly believe they were more advanced, more ethical than us. They think differently than we do," Lee explained. "To them, this is just math. They calculate acceptable losses. They see individual lives as numbers." Admiral Kang pressed a button, and a new image appeared on the screen. It showed a meeting room with 7 council representatives sitting around a table. "This is a recording we obtained," Kang said. "Watch." In the video, Ambassador Vexlar spoke to the other aliens. "The humans will serve as an effective buffer. Their unpredictable nature makes them suitable test subjects. If they develop useful countermeasures before being consumed, we can adapt their technologies. If not, we have lost nothing of value to galactic civilization." President Choi's face hardened. "Turn it off." The screen went black. "I've called the council representatives to a meeting tomorrow," Choi said. "I want to hear them try to explain this." The next day, 3 council members sat across from the human leaders. Vexlar was in the center. "We made a pragmatic decision," Vexlar said calmly. "The Void Collective must be studied before it can be defeated. Some planets must be sacrificed for the greater good." "Your greater good," Lee said. "Not ours." "You humans are so emotional," said another council member named Lerita. "This is why you were never truly ready to join galactic civilization. You cannot see beyond your attachments to make logical choices." "Is it logical to throw away allies?" Kim asked. "To lie to those who trusted you?" "When necessary, yes," Vexlar replied. "Our civilization has survived for 50,000 years by making such choices." President Choi stood up. "This meeting is over. The Council is no longer welcome in Earth space. You have 24 hours to leave." As the aliens left, Admiral Kang turned to the others. "Now we prepare for war." Later, in a secure room deep below Earth's surface, Lee and Kim stood with Admiral Kang before a massive vault door. "For 60 years," Kang said, "we've played by their rules. Limited our weapons, showed only our most basic military technology, all to appear civilized to the Council." The vault door began to slide open, but we never stopped developing. We just kept the real advances hidden. Inside the vault were rows of data servers and holographic displays. Kang activated the main screen, and blueprints appeared for ships, weapons, and defense systems far beyond what humans had publicly shown. "Project Fenris," Kang said, pointing to one design. "Orbital defense platforms with enough firepower to split a moon." He switched to another image, the Lazarus Protocol. AI-driven combat systems that adapt faster than the Void Collective can. Lee looked at the designs with wide eyes. "All this time, we needed to appear peaceful," Kang said. "But we never forgot how to fight. The Council species have lived so long in their precious peace that they've lost something essential." "What's that?" Kim asked. "The will to protect their own at any cost," Kang replied. "They've forgotten what it means to stand and fight when there's no logical reason to hope. That's the one advantage humans have always had." As they spoke, alerts began sounding throughout the facility. "Sir," a young officer said, running into the room. "The Void Collective has changed course. It's moving faster now, attacking human outposts in the Cygnus sector." Lee's face darkened. "They're not just consuming anymore. They're hunting." Kang nodded grimly. "Then it's time to show them what they're hunting." 3 days after the Council representatives left Earth, Admiral Kang Jin stood before the United Earth Defense Council. The room was filled with military and civilian leaders from all human colonies that could still be reached. As of today, Admiral Kang announced, all restrictions on military development are lifted. Protocol Omega is now in effect. A murmur went through the room. Most people had never heard of Protocol Omega. For those who don't know, Kang continued, when we first met the Galactic Council, they required us to limit our weapons technology. We agreed publicly, but in secret, we continued our research. Now it's time to use everything we have. Captain Lee Jun and Commander Kim Sun sat near the front. Lee raised his hand. Admiral, how quickly can we deploy these hidden technologies? That's why you're here, Kang said. The Dauntless will be the first ship to be upgraded. Engineer Yumda will lead the refit team. A short man with thick glasses stood up. My team is ready. We can start work immediately. 2 weeks later, Lee walked through the Dauntless, barely recognizing his own ship. Workers moved everywhere, installing new systems. The walls were open, showing new wiring and strange devices. Lee found Engineer Yoon in the main engine room, surrounded by holographic displays. How's it going? Lee asked. Yoon smiled. Better than expected. The quantum shield generators are online. We've installed the phase cannons. And the AI combat system is learning quickly. Will it be enough? Lee asked quietly. Against the Void Collective. Yoon shrugged. I don't know, but it's better than what we had before. Kim joined them, carrying a tablet. Sir, we just got new reports. The collective has consumed 3 more outposts. But something's different now. What do you mean? Lee asked. They're getting smarter with each attack, almost like they're testing our defenses, learning our weak points. Yoon looked worried. If they keep adapting at this rate, even our new technology might not be enough. Lee thought for a moment. Then we need to study them too. Find their weakness before they find ours. How? Kim asked. Every time we face them directly, we lose. Not every time, Lee said. The few survivors from Nova Colony escaped because the collective was focused on consuming the research center first. If we could observe an attack without engaging. You mean let them attack a colony? Kim looked shocked. That's exactly what the council would do. No, Lee said firmly. Not a populated colony. But we do have Outpost 47. It was evacuated last week when life support failed. The structures are still there. A trap, Yoon said, nodding slowly. We could fill it with sensors, gather data on how the collective attacks. It's risky, Kim warned. If the collective realizes what we're doing. All options now are risky, Lee replied. But unlike the council, we'll be there to fight if things go wrong. 1 week later, the newly upgraded Dauntless hid behind the moon of Outpost 47. The ship looked different now. Its hull was darker, with strange patterns that seemed to shift and change. New weapons extended from ports that hadn't existed before. On the bridge, Lee sat in his command chair, watching the screens. Any sign of them? He asked. Not yet, Kim replied. But our long-range sensors show something moving toward this sector. Engineer Yoon entered the bridge. Captain, all systems are ready. But I should warn you, some of these technologies have never been tested in actual combat. They're theoretical. Lee nodded. Noted. But right now, theories are all we have. Suddenly, the sensors beeped loudly. Contact, Kim called out. Multiple massive objects dropping out of hyperspace. It's them. On the main screen, dark shapes appeared near Outpost 47. They looked like giant squid, but with hundreds of tentacles and strange glowing spots along their bodies. There were at least 20 of them. They took the bait, Lee said quietly. Now let's see what we can learn. As they watched, the creatures surrounded the outpost and began to consume it, breaking down the structures molecule by molecule. Recording everything, Kim confirmed. Lee's hands tightened on his chair. Get ready. If they detect us, we fight. Behind him, His crew prepared the weapons humanity had hidden for 60 years. The mercy rule was over. The crew of the Dauntless watched in silence as the Void Collective consumed Outpost 47. The creatures moved with strange purpose, breaking down metal and concrete into nothing. "Are we getting good data?" Captain Lee asked. Kim nodded. "Perfect readings. The sensors are picking up everything." Engineer Yoon studied his screens with wide eyes. "Captain, I'm detecting energy patterns inside the creatures. They're not just eating the outpost. They're scanning it first, learning from it." Suddenly, all the screens flashed red. "They'd spotted us," Kim called out. Lee stood up. "How?" "We're behind the moon. They figured out our sensor beams," Yoon explained quickly. "They followed them back to us." 3 massive void creatures broke away from the outpost and moved toward the Dauntless. They were bigger up close than Lee had imagined, each one nearly the size of his ship. "Battle stations," Lee ordered. "Activate all defensive systems." The bridge came alive with activity. New screens lit up showing weapons that no human ship had publicly displayed before. "Sir," Kim said, "I'm detecting a Council observation ship at the edge of the system. They're watching us." Lee's face hardened. "Let them watch. Quantum shields up. Target the lead creature with phase cannons." The Dauntless hummed with power as shields unlike any seen before surrounded the ship. They weren't the blue bubble shields the Council used, but a shifting, flowing pattern that bent light around the ship. "Firing phase cannons," the weapons officer reported. Beams of energy unlike normal weapons fire shot from the Dauntless. They didn't look like lasers or plasma. They seemed to bend space itself, hitting the lead creature where it shouldn't have been able to reach. The creature shuddered, but kept coming. "Minimal effect," Kim reported. "They're adapting already." The creatures released a cloud of smaller beings that swarmed toward the Dauntless. "Swarm attack," Yoon shouted, "just like at Nova Colony." Lee made a decision. "Open all channels," he ordered. "Broadcast on every frequency." When the communications officer nodded, Lee spoke clearly. "This is humanity. We stand for our own." Then he turned to his crew. "Execute pattern Omega-3." Without warning, the Dauntless did something no Council ship would ever do. It fired on itself. Specifically, it launched missiles that destroyed its own outer hull plating on the port side. The swarm of smaller creatures rushed to consume the debris, exactly as Lee had predicted. "Now," Lee ordered. The Dauntless fired into the swarm with weapons that seemed to fold space around the creatures. Where they hit, the creatures simply ceased to exist. "It's working," Kim called out. "The swarm is breaking apart." But the larger creatures were still coming. One slammed into the quantum shields, its tentacles searching for a way through. "Shields at 60%, Yoon reported. "We can't take many hits like that." Lee looked at the tactical display. "Dr. Park, are you seeing what I'm seeing?" Dr. Park Ha, who had been analyzing the data from a science station, nodded. "Yes. The creatures communicate through those glowing nodes. They pulse in patterns." "Can we disrupt that communication?" Lee asked. "Theoretically," Park said, "if we match the frequency but invert it." "Do it," Lee ordered. Engineer Yoon and Dr. Park worked frantically, reprogramming the ship's communication array. Meanwhile, another creature hit the shields. "Shields at 40%, someone called out. "Ready, sir," Park announced. "Broadcast the disruption signal," Lee ordered. The Dauntless released a pulse of energy targeted directly at the glowing nodes on the creatures. Instantly, the creatures began to move erratically, their tentacles flailing. "It's working," Kim said. "They're losing coordination." "All weapons, fire at the central node of the lead creature," Lee ordered. The Dauntless unleashed everything it had. The creature's central node exploded, and the massive body began to break apart. The other creatures suddenly pulled back. "They're retreating," Kim said in disbelief. The bridge crew watched as the Void Collective creatures moved away at high speed, leaving the system. "We did it," Yoon said quietly. "We actually made them retreat." Lee nodded, looking at the council ship still watching from a distance. "And we showed the council something important." "What's that, sir?" Kim asked. "That humanity doesn't abandon its own," Lee said. "And that civilized never meant defenseless." News of the Dauntless's victory spread quickly. Within days, recordings of the battle reached every human colony. People gathered in public spaces to watch Captain Lee's message. "This is humanity. We stand for our own." On Earth, Admiral Kang met with Captain Lee and Commander Kim in a secure room. "You did well," Kang said. "You gave people hope." "Thank you, sir," Lee replied. "But the Void Collective will adapt. They always do. That's why we're accelerating our plans," Kang said, activating a display. "Every ship in the fleet is being upgraded with the technology you tested." The display showed shipyards across the solar system, buzzing with activity. Old ships were being torn apart and rebuilt with new systems. "There's something else you should see," Kang continued, changing the display. "This came through diplomatic channels an hour ago." A new image appeared, an alien ship unlike the sleek council vessels. It was bulky and clearly built for war. "The Meridians," Kim said with surprise. "They've never talked to us before." "They're talking now," Kang replied. "Their ambassador wants to meet, privately, away from council observation." 2 days later, Lee and Kim sat across from Ambassador Torv of the Meridian Alliance. The Meridian was shorter than most council aliens, with gray skin and 6 small eyes arranged in a circle. "You fought the Void Collective and won," Torv said without greeting. "This changes things." "We got lucky," Lee said cautiously. "No," Torv shook his head. "Not luck. You did what the council would never do. You risked everything to fight. The council species have forgotten how." "Why are you here, Ambassador?" Kim asked directly. "The council has kept many species down," Torv explained. "They call us lesser races because we still remember conflict, because we build weapons even when they tell us not to." Lee leaned forward. "You hide your technology too." "Of course," Torv nodded, "just as you do. But we watch your battle. You have technologies we don't, and we have some you don't." "You're suggesting an alliance?" Kim asked. "Yes, not just with Meridians. There are 11 non-council species who fear both the collective and the council's cold calculations." As they talked, an aide rushed into the room. "Captain Lee, urgent message from Earth Command." Lee read the message and his face went pale. "The Void Collective has changed course. They're not attacking random colonies anymore. They're heading directly toward Earth." "How long do we have?" Torv asked. 2 weeks, maybe less," Lee answered. The Meridian stood up. "Then our alliance begins now. I will contact the others immediately." Meanwhile, in council space, Ambassador Vexlar stood before the full Galactic Council. 7 ancient aliens looked down at him from high seats. "The humans used weapons we've never seen," Vexlar reported. "Technologies that violate our treaties." "As we suspected," said the oldest council member. "They have been deceiving us." "We must demand they surrender these weapons," said another. "Such technologies are too dangerous in the hands of emotional species." "And if they refuse?" Vexlar asked. "Then we will be forced to contain them," the oldest member replied. "For the good of galactic civilization." "But first," a third council member said, "we will wait and see if they defeat the Void Collective for us." Vexlar looked uncomfortable. "The Collective is targeting Earth directly now. The humans will need help." "Help that we will offer," the oldest said, "once they have exhausted their hidden weapons, once they are vulnerable again." Back on the Dauntless, Lee received a message from Dr. Park. "I finished analyzing the Collective's movements," Park told him. "They changed course immediately after our battle. It's as if we made them angry." "Not angry," Lee corrected. Threatened. We're the first species to hurt them. There's something else, Park added. Based on their new course and speed, I don't think they're just coming for Earth. What do you mean? They're coming for all of us, Park said grimly. And they're gathering their entire swarm to do it. With the Void Collective heading toward Earth, Admiral Kang called an emergency meeting of Earth's Defense Council. Captain Lee, Commander Kim, and Engineer Yoon stood at attention as President Choi entered the room. We have 10 days before the collective reaches Earth, Kang said without greeting. It's time to reveal everything. President Choi nodded. Do it. Admiral Kang pressed his hand to a scanner. On the large wall screen, a map of the solar system appeared. Then, one by one, new dots began to light up. Dozens of them. Then hundreds. What are those? Kim asked. Our real fleet, Kang answered. Hidden in asteroid bases, disguised as mining stations, or kept in dimensional pocket space. Captain Lee stared at the screen. There are over 500 ships here. How did you hide them from the Council? The same way we hid everything else, Kang said. We showed them what they expected to see. They thought humans were just beginning space exploration. They never looked deeper. Engineer Yoon stepped forward. Sir, Project Fenris is ready. What's Project Fenris? President Choi asked. Yoon brought up a new image on the screen. It showed Earth's moon, but with strange structures now visible on its surface and interior. We'd hollowed out parts of the moon decades ago, Yoon explained. Installed weapon systems that could destroy a small planet. We disguised them as research stations. Commander Kim looked shocked. All this time. It was necessary, Admiral Kang said firmly. The Council species have been manipulating younger races for thousands of years. We knew from our first contact that we couldn't trust them. A young officer ran into the room. Sir, Council ships have entered the solar system. Ambassador Vexlar is requesting permission to land. President Choi and Admiral Kang exchanged glances. Let him land, Choi decided. I want to see his face when he sees what we've been hiding. Ambassador Vexlar stood at the window of the Earth Defense Headquarters, watching as the hidden human fleet emerged from their concealment. His 4 eyes blinked rapidly. Impossible, he whispered. Captain Lee stood beside him. Not impossible. Just hidden. These ships, these weapons. Vexlar turned to Lee. You've violated every treaty. No, Lee said calmly. We signed treaties limiting what we would deploy. We never agreed to limit what we would develop. More ships appeared, these with strange designs unlike typical human vessels. Those aren't human ships, Vexlar said. No, those belong to the Meridians, the Taurans, and 9 other lesser species you've been keeping down. Vexlar's skin paled. The Council will not allow this. The Council isn't being asked for permission, Lee replied. You had your chance to stand with us. You chose calculation over cooperation. These weapons are too dangerous for emotional species, Vexlar insisted. That's where you're wrong, Lee said. They're too dangerous to use without emotion, without compassion to check power, without the will to protect others, not just yourself. Vexlar stepped back. What are you saying? I'm saying that civilized never meant what you thought it did, Lee explained. It wasn't about hiding our teeth. It was about choosing when to bare them. The floor suddenly shook. Warning lights flashed. They're here early, Lee said, checking his tablet. The Void Collective has arrived. On the screens around the room, massive dark shapes appeared at the edge of the solar system. Hundreds of them. The largest was the size of a small moon. There are too many, Vexlar said quietly. Even with your hidden fleet. Then it's time for the final revelation, Lee said. He pressed his communicator. Admiral Kang, activate Protocol Omega. All of it. Across Earth and throughout the solar system, hidden facilities powered up. The moon glowed with strange energy patterns. Orbital platforms shifted, revealing massive weapon systems. What have you done? Vexlar asked. What was necessary, Lee answered. We prepared for the day when being civilized wasn't enough. As the Void Collective approached, humanity revealed what 60 years of restraint had been hiding. The wolves had been unleashed. The Void Collective moved into the solar system like a dark cloud. The human fleet and their allies formed a defensive line between the enemy and Earth. Captain Lee stood on the bridge of the Dauntless, now the command ship for the combined fleet. Commander Kim worked at her station, coordinating with the other ships. All ships report ready, Kim said. Meridian and Tauran vessels are in position. Admiral Kang's face appeared on the main screen. Project Fenris is online. Earth's orbital defenses are at full power. And the Council ships? Lee asked. Holding position near Mars, Kim replied. Observing, as usual. Lee nodded. Of course. He opened a channel to all ships. This is Captain Lee. Today we fight not just for Earth, but for all species who choose to stand together. The collective thinks it can consume us. Let's show them how wrong they are. The Void Collective attacked without warning. Hundreds of massive creatures surged forward, tentacles reaching out. Smaller creatures swarmed ahead like insects. Fire all weapons, Lee ordered. The human fleet unleashed everything they had. The moon-based Fenris weapons fired massive energy beams that cut through dozens of collective creatures. Hidden orbital platforms revealed planet-killer weapons that had never been used before. The collective adapted quickly. After the first wave of attacks, they changed their approach, breaking into smaller groups and attacking from multiple directions. They're learning again, Kim warned, adapting to our weapons. 3 massive collective creatures broke through the defensive line and headed straight for Earth. Fenris can't target them from that angle, Yoon reported from engineering. They found a blind spot. Lee made a quick decision. Dauntless will pursue. Kim, call in Squadron 7 for backup. The Dauntless chased after the collective creatures, firing continuously. One creature was hit and began to break apart, but the other 2 kept going. They'll reach Earth's atmosphere in 2 minutes, Kim reported. All power to engines, Lee ordered. The Dauntless shot forward, putting itself between the creatures and Earth. Both creatures slammed into the ship's quantum shields. Shields failing. Yoon shouted over the comm. We can't take another hit. Suddenly, 3 council ships appeared, firing at the collective creatures from a new angle. One creature exploded. The other pulled back. The council ships are helping, Kim said in surprise. Not all council members think alike, came a voice over the comm. It was Vexillar. Some of us remember what it means to fight. But the battle was turning against them. More collective creatures broke through the defensive line. Earth's orbital defenses were being overwhelmed. We're losing, Kim said quietly. Admiral Kang's face appeared on screen again. It's time, Captain. Execute Protocol Omega. Final phase. Lee looked stunned. Sir, that's untested technology. It's all we have left, Kang replied. Lee nodded grimly. Understood. He turned to Kim. Transmit the activation codes to all command ships. Throughout the solar system, special devices on human and allied ships began to power up. They created a network of quantum-entangled fields. What is this? Vexillar asked over the comm. Our last resort, Lee replied. Something we developed but hoped never to use. The quantum network activated. Throughout the battle zone, space itself seemed to bend. The Void Collective creatures suddenly froze in place. Their connection to each other was severed. Now, Lee ordered. All ships target their central nodes. Every ship and weapon fired at once. Without their hive connection, the collective creatures couldn't adapt or coordinate. One by one, they began to fall apart. It's working, Kim shouted. For hours, the battle raged. More ships were lost. Parts of Earth's orbital defenses were destroyed. But slowly, the tide turned. When it was over, the remains of the Void Collective drifted through space like dead sea creatures washed up on a shore. Lee stood on his damaged bridge, looking at the reports coming in. The cost had been enormous. Dozens of ships destroyed, thousands of lives lost. But Earth still stood, and humanity had shown the galaxy what civilized really meant. 3 months after the battle for Earth, representatives from 37 species gathered in the newly built Galactic Assembly on Earth's moon. The massive chamber was filled with beings of all shapes and sizes. Some were former council races, others were the once called lesser species. All were here for a new beginning. Admiral Lee Jun, recently promoted after Captain Kim Sun took command of the rebuilt Dauntless, stood at the central podium. The room fell silent as he began to speak. "We gather today not as rulers and ruled, not as greater and lesser, but as equals," Lee said. His voice carried to every corner of the room. The old Galactic Council believed that civilization meant the absence of conflict, the rejection of strength. They were wrong. In the front row, Ambassador Vexlar sat with the remaining council representatives. They looked uncomfortable but attentive. "True civilization," Lee continued, "is not the absence of teeth, but the choice of when to bear them. It is not the rejection of strength, but the wise use of it. It is not turning away from those in danger, but standing beside them, no matter the cost." Along the walls of the chamber, images showed the battle against the Void Collective. They showed human ships placing themselves between the enemy and vulnerable worlds. They showed allies fighting side by side. "Humans never hid our weapons because we were ashamed of them," Lee explained. "We hid them because we understood something the Council had forgotten. True power comes with responsibility. The stronger you are, the greater your duty to protect others, not just yourself." Dr. Park Ha, now the head of the new Galactic Research Division, stood next. She activated a holographic display showing the remains of the Void Collective. "Our studies have revealed something important," Park said. The Void Collective had encountered the Council species before, thousands of years ago. They retreated then because the Council races were still willing to fight. They only returned when they sensed that the Council had grown weak, comfortable, and calculating. Murmurs spread through the room. The Council representatives looked down at their hands. "The Collective preyed on those who had forgotten how to defend themselves," Park continued. "They consumed those who had traded strength for the appearance of civility." President Choi Min approached the podium next. Her face was serious but hopeful. "Today we form a new alliance," Choi announced, "not based on age or technology level or military power, but based on a simple principle. We stand together. We protect each other. We fight for each other when necessary." The chamber erupted in approval. Species that had once been enemies now stood together, united by their shared stand against the Collective. After the ceremony, Lee found Vexlar waiting for him in a quiet hallway. "Admiral Lee," Vexlar said, his 4 eyes blinking slowly, "I have a question that has troubled me since the battle." "What is it, Ambassador? Why did humans develop such capacity for war, yet choose peace until forced otherwise?" Vexlar asked. "My species believed that any race with your capabilities would use them to conquer." Commander Kim, who had just joined them, smiled. "Because that's what civilized actually means," she said, "not the absence of teeth, but the choice of when to bear them." Vexlar considered this. "I believe I am beginning to understand." "There's something else you should understand," Lee added. "Humans never wanted to rule the galaxy. We just refused to let others perish when we had the power to help." As they spoke, a new ship rose from